people of the internet. This is Milan P, or DerpsyDerp1999 if you follow me on DeviantArt or Twitter, or if you remember me by my old username. And I'd like to welcome you to my own review series, the Entertainment Annihilator. This is basically going to be your average review series. I look at a few movies or TV shows and cartoons, and I basically talk about the problems and the flaws in two different styles. The style you're going to see today, which is probably going to be the more prominent style, is basically a 3 to 10 minute review, and the other style is in 20 minutes, much more like the typical Nostalgia Critic review. And for those of you who are going to immediately call me a ripoff, face it everybody, this is the style every internet reviewer uses nowadays. But to be fair, I'm going to spare you and just mainly focus on the 7-minute average reviews, but I think I've talked about all of this enough. I think we should get on to the main presentation. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the pilot of the Entertainment Annihilator. Even though I just explained a minute ago. Let's start off our series with a look at It's the Girl in the Red Truck, Charlie Brown. The infamous 4-year, $1 million quest of Charles M. Schulz to make a masterpiece, and then miserably failing at it. Much like something like The Thief and the Cobbler or Little Nemo Adventures in Slumberland, this series took a while to produce, and again, millions to produce. It was supposed to be released around March 1988, under the name The Girl in the Red Truck, but was instead released in September 1988 with its current name, right after another movie with a very similar premise came out. That movie, obviously, being Who Framed Roger Rabbit. Coming out a few weeks before it, it was a huge hit, and of course, millions upon millions upon millions immediately blasted the film for being a Roger Rabbit ripoff. Oh, it's got the same style. Oh, it's got the exact same kind of animation. Oh, it's an immediate Roger Rabbit ripoff. Hey, if Chuggington can get away with all their Thomas ripoffs, I think Charles M. Schulz can hit something with a similar style. To be honest, I don't find it that big a Roger Rabbit ripoff. In fact, when you get down to it, neither of them have much in common. But I have to admit that doesn't excuse it from being a very mediocre picture. Alright, but before we talk about the problems, we should probably talk about the story. I actually have to give the film a lot of credit for doing something that, honestly, a lot of specials haven't done before. Yeah, I haven't gotten to the story yet, but I should probably explain it before that. The special doesn't focus on the main cast who we're used to, like Snoopy, Charlie Brown, and Linus, though granted, we do get a very shoehorned scene with Charlie Brown and Snoopy, which, I'm not gonna lie, doesn't go anywhere after 6 minutes into the special. It's actually focused on Spike, who was not a very prominent character in both the comic strips and the cartoons. You had him once in a while as a quick cameo or part of a plot or something, but for the most part, he was just a minor character in the background. Now, to be honest, that is something really cool. Does the story work for it? Honestly, no. The story of the special is basically just Spike getting smitten with a girl who rides in a red truck. Get it? Because the special is named Girl in the Red Truck, so no, screw it, we got a review to do. And one day, the girl just so happens to break down right in front of his cacti home. After confusingly helping her to fix the car by going to the car, getting sucked out of the bush from the bottom. Yeah, I have no idea how that works either. She finds the dog cute and decides to bring Spike along with her on her adventures. Okay, not really adventures, basically just driving to a burger shack and fooling around for a bit and playing frisbee. But then the plot thickens when her friend Jeff comes along, seeing that she's gotten an audition in the big city. But she's worried about leaving her small desert town, and even Jeff himself is having his doubts about her leaving the desert with beautiful landscapes and all of that usual crap. When they go to a roller rink, during one of the dances, Spike accidentally gets flung out of the window. Feeling alone in the desert, he wanders off on his own and gets into even more trouble while hanging out with the country bum jamboree. Yeah, he somehow encounters him and never appears before in the special or after. You get an idea. He gets into big trouble with a bunch of coyote hunters who want to shoot the poor dog down. So Jenny and Jeff try to stop the coyote hunters from turning poor Spike into a pincushion. Okay, so I should probably talk about the problems first, and to be honest, there's a lot of them. I should probably start with the biggest problem most people talk about, the animation. And yeah, to be honest, this isn't really good animation, even by Peanut standards. I won't compare this to Who Framed Roger Rabbit because, let's be honest, it would make me look like a complete bastard. But in many respects, yeah, there's no comparison. Roger Rabbit was a lot better. I guess to be honest, they did do a lot worse efforts with live-action animation. I mean, for God's sake, I thought Bobby's World did have worse animation than the stuff they have in this movie. But honestly, the animation still feels very sloppy, even for the time it came out, which was mostly the Dark Ages of animation. Or at least the end of the Dark Ages and the beginning of the Renaissance, and you get my idea. I actually don't have a problem with the designs they do for Spike. He's got some good expressions, the motion's alright with him a few times, but it's mostly the compositing with the live action and the animation I have a problem with. To give you an example, there's a scene in the movie where Jenny and Spike play with a frisbee for a bit, and it sort of just goes to inconsistent motions. Whenever Jenny usually catches it, it looks very three-dimensional and obviously rotoscope, but when Spike catches it, the motion suddenly feels less 3D and more 2D. And honestly, the pacing with it and Spike catching it also feels very sloppy. But if I were to pick the worst animation in the film, I'd probably go with the dance sequence. There's a lot of animation errors throughout this. Seriously, just watch a little bit and try and make a lick of sense of half the effects they use. I think that's very well done either. Lots of poor lighting, lots of poor motion, lots of inconsistent motion, and even shots where Spike's just floating in the air. How did they get away with that in a Peanut special? Even the other Peanut specials didn't have as bad animation as this. Another big issue is that I think there's very, very little story to it. It feels a lot like one of those specials that was just trying to go, hey, we have live action animation, so we're gonna make it look so cool and people are going to love us. And honestly, that really doesn't add a lot of story. I guess to be fair, it tries to be simpler with having only one major or animated character, and there's only 3 human characters in the whole film, not counting the multiple extras and the coyote hunters. But honestly, they don't develop enough story with these characters that you'd really care for them. Like they imply that Molly is really good friends with Spike and that Spike often comes down every once in a while. Now, if we had a few scenes like that, or maybe did the special as a day-in-the-life story as opposed to being sort of a road movie, that would have been interesting. But as a simple special that just seems more focused on the effects and the story, it really doesn't hold up. Actually, why didn't they just do it as something like a day-in-the-life story? That would have been so much more interesting than the plot they try and force in. In fact, that's another problem I should probably note with the film. While some ideas do feel creative, they just end up sort of falling flat. For example, again, as I mentioned before, there's a big climax involving a bunch of coyote hunters trying to hunt Spike down, and Jenny and Jeff try to save him. It's actually pretty damn dramatic up until you see the outcome of it. Big spoilers for anyone who's gonna try and see the movie, by the way. Really? The one guy just walks up and then all of a sudden they're just going, hey, we're done. There's a guy up there, we gotta go, we can't murder anyone. And big shock, again, I don't think the characters are really that interesting. Again, Spike sort of has some nice qualities in the animation of them, but the human characters don't really have a lot of, well, character to them. Jenny's just sort of this happy, nice girl character, Jeff is just sort of this bland boyfriend character. Molly is shown to be kind of wanting to go leave the desert surroundings, and I guess that sort of adds to that whole debate about whether she has to stay in the desert or not in the film. But again, she's not developed enough or given enough scenes in the whole film. Actually, speaking of which, the ending to the special is probably one of the most bitter endings I've ever seen. Oh, I'm not gonna give it away, but trust me, if you want a depressing Peanuts ending, this is probably the one for you. Alright, so for all of my whining and complaining, is this really one of the worst animated specials ever? Well, honestly, as much as I hate a lot of the problems of the film, I wouldn't say it's that horrible, at least for my taste. I'll tell you the things I do like about the film. The idea of having a minor character as a star is really clever. A few bits of animation are alright, and even if the music does sound kinda dated, in fact a bit Game Boyish at times, I still think a few of the cues really work. But do those all make a good movie? Definitely not. I can sort of understand why there's not too many people who haven't heard of it, and I kind of understand why a lot of the other Peanuts specials have gone onto DVD and yet this one hasn't. But I also think it should at least have the notion of being watched. I did sort of hate it at first, but after watching it on a few bus trips on the way to some performances with my friends, I kind of actually noted it's a sort of likable quality to it. Okay, not actually decent movie quality, but more bad, it's interesting sort of quality. If you were a huge Roger Rabbit fan and you thought there was a whole lot of great stuff with the animation and you thought nobody could replicate it, chances are you're probably not gonna like this movie. But if you just want a Peanuts special just for the sake of watching a Peanuts special, I guess, or if you simply just want to see every Peanut special, I'd say you could at least give it a watch. Don't get me wrong, it's still crappy. There's little story, a lot of poor animation, but there is kind of an interesting charm about it. And again, I have seen worse done with the medium. But hey, that's just me talking about the film in a confusing sort of way. Check it out, try and torrent it, because believe me, you will not want to get the video cassette, because trust me, it is expensive as hell, and give your own views on it. So that was my pilot episode. Thank you all for watching, and I hope to see you all again very soon. Thanks for watching, everyone!
What are you going to do with him?
I'm going to keep him. What else? I haven't had a dog since Roofy. And I need someone to keep me company around here.
Oh my goodness!